Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Transforming Libraries for Graduate Students webinar series. Since 2016, TLGS hosts a biennial conference dedicated to graduate librarianship and its many facets. It provides a space for sharing innovative ideas and best practices for supporting graduate faculty and students in higher education. This webinar series is a way to keep our community of graduate librarians connected and engaged in that off year. Our next conference will be taking place in spring of next year, 2024, so stay tuned for more conference details. We are in the process of conference planning as we speak. My name is Elaine Walker, and I'm the Scholarly Communications Librarian here at the University of Alabama, and I will be the moderator for today's session. I've been involved with TLGS since 2020, first as a presenter, then as a conference planning committee member for the next year, and now the host for the webinar series. Today, we'll hear from Nadine Hoffman and Rhiannon Jones, who are both at the University of Calgary, on the development of their user-focused support teams designed to meet the changing needs of their library users during the pandemic. And with that, I'll turn it over to you guys.
Thank you very much. I'll be starting today. So yes, once again, my name is Rhiannon Jones. I've been a business librarian here at U of C for over 10 years now. I started off in my role as the graduate business librarian, and now it's just all business. Nadine Hoffman is my colleague, and she works primarily with law and history, and probably about 30 other subjects at the same time. So we have a very diverse range of skills here, but we're here to speak to you about our user-focused working groups, particularly the graduate support team. Next slide, please. Okay, so we are speaking to you. The University of Calgary is located in the heart of Southern Alberta, and we both acknowledge and pay tribute to the traditional territories of the peoples of Treaty 7, which include the Blackfoot Confederacy, comprised of the Siksika, the Piikani, and the Kainai First Nations. The Tsuut'ina First Nation and Stoney Nakoda, including Chiniki, Bearspaw, and Good Stoney First Nations. The city of Calgary is also home to the Métis Nation of Alberta, Region 3. Thank you. Okay, so a little bit about the University of Calgary, just to get us started, to give you a bit of background. We're a large degree granting post-secondary institution located in Calgary, Alberta, Canada. We are recognized as one of the top research universities in Canada. Our mission that we're working under now is called Eyes High, and it focuses the direction of our work. Okay, according to the statement, the strategy statement, the University of Calgary is a global intellectual hub located in Canada's most enterprising city. In a spirited, high-quality learning environment, students will thrive in programs made rich by research, hands-on experiences, and entrepreneurial thinking. So I really want to highlight this entrepreneurial thinking piece, because that just adds a layer of complexity to a lot of graduate students, to the work they do, because not only are they expected to perform academically, now the messaging is, okay, do all the work you've been doing, but now be an entrepreneur as well. So it adds a lot of layers of stress to students sometimes, but it's a really wonderful opportunity for students. Currently, as of fall 2022, our full enrollment was over 36,000 students, and over 8,000 of those were graduate students in fall 2023. Thank you. And this is just a quick snapshot of our enrollment by faculty. Okay, so we'll see, that the engineering is the highest right here, and they're followed by education and Haskayne, the School of Business, Faculty of Arts and Science. So you can see that there's a lot of graduate students across some of these practical programs, these professional programs quite often. Okay, so there's multiple priorities there. Thank you, Nadine. Okay, so libraries and cultural resources, where we work. Here's a picture of the Taylor Family Digital Library, which is located right in the heart of campus. The building opened over 10 years ago, and it's considered one of the most technologically advanced libraries. We're a unique tapestry of libraries and archives, galleries and museums, the University of Calgary Press, the Copyright Office, and the Prairie Regional Research Data Center. Okay, so we're a variety of services. We also host the Student Success Center in the library. So they work out of the library as well, although they are not part of the library. They work in the library, so we have those built-in partnerships right there in the business, in the TFDL. There are more than 7.8 million items housed in the high density storage facility. There's 7 libraries across campus, which is the Taylor Family Digital Library, and then some of our branches. We have the Doucette Library for Education currently, the Bennett Jones Law Library, where Nadine is working out of, the Business Library, Gallagher for Engineering, Health Sciences on the Health Sciences campus, and then we operate the military museums and archives as well. There's quite a diverse range of services in LCR. Our staffing levels are also quite broad. We have both a liaison and a functional librarian model. So we're often asked to do both, to have both hats on, to be those functional pieces, which is where this graduate support team comes in, and also, our liaison work as well. The support staff are now centralized, but before we used to operate branch by branch, had their own support staff, and we found there was a lot of duplication of work, a lot of everybody doing the same thing. So support staff is now centralized, and most will be working out of the Taylor Family Digital Library in the future. And we also have our MAPS staff, so our management and professional staff, who help guide some of the operations as well. Next slide, please, Nadine. Thank you. So a bit about our support teams here, okay? So it was established during COVID, right? Everybody came home March 2020, and right away, you lost track of what people were doing, okay? We didn't know who was doing what. Everybody was asked really quickly to pivot, to turn everything online. And so once again, duplication of work. There was so much duplication. Nobody knew what each other was doing. So in April 2020, there was a call for all library staff to choose their top 2 teams, okay? So out of the graduate, the undergraduate, and faculty support team. So we looked at our users to define these teams, okay? Look at the main user groups, and we have a group for all of those. And then the AULs determined team membership at that point. So everybody put their top 2 teams in, and then the teams were organized based on staffing levels to make sure there was an even amount of support staff on all teams, try to make sure there's an even amount of librarians, try to make sure there was representation across campus on all teams. Okay, there was a call for chairs. There was a 2-year preferred time for each chair, just to ensure stability, because it's hard to get something up and running and then have to switch over in a year. So after this 2-year, I was the chair for the first 2 years, and Nadine came on as a co-chair in the last 6 months of my term as chair. And then she's been the chair for about a year now. I lose track of time after 2020. Who knows time anymore? So that was the development of these teams, and they started up really, really quickly. Okay, and so it was a way of, we're going to stress this a lot, probably, that collaborative nature of the work and the way we wanted to connect with staff. So it's a really great way of building staff connections. Next slide, please, Nadine. Oh, sorry. It's Monday. I'm staring off into one of many screens, I suppose. So our original teams here, as I mentioned before, we have the undergraduate support team, the graduate support team, and the faculty support team. All focused on those user groups. We did find, there is overlap between the teams, and we are going to talk about that shortly as well. So these are the original teams, and some of their early activities were designed to build that connection again. So the undergraduate team immediately started working on basic library tutorials. So they started to produce a lot of library building blocks material, a lot of those really great video tutorials, really short things that we could send to people just to help people get up to speed while they weren't able to come in person. The graduate support team is us. That's what we're here to talk about. So we'll talk more about our tech activities in a bit. And then the faculty support team, and they looked at the faculty, and that team had some great success working with disinformation toolkits. They're still working on that. They also started a yearly faculty engagement event where it was half a day where all of LCR staff could go and do little lightning sessions on what they're doing to engage faculty. And then later on, there were two more teams. We have the online engagement team, which came on in fall 2020, and their role was primarily to look at our social media posts, to ensure cohesive communication and engagement with people. So we would tell them what we wanted to post. They would format it, make it all pretty, and they would send it out and make sure there's no duplication. And then there was the media creation team, which was developed post-COVID, and they really look at social media as well. They look at those tutorial creations. They're looking at branding. They want to make sure our material's up to date. They want to make sure there's no duplication, things like that. So we build the content and give it to the media creation team, and they have their team and they work to make sure everything is one solid piece. It doesn't look like it was built by a bunch of different people. Okay, next slide, please. Thank you. Okay, so our original mandate was developed. This came from the AUL, so the Associate University Librarians. This was in the descriptions of all the teams. Okay, so we were charged with working collaboratively to establish programs and supports for graduate learners at U of C. Okay, we were told to develop specific online tools and resources. So that was our first focus right there. Of course, move our in-person programming online, okay, both through asynchronous and synchronous. Take all programs from My Grad Skills online. So My Grad Skills is a program aimed at developing graduate skills. It's across campus. They have mental health workshops, they have library workshops, they have different types of workshops. And so we've often partnered with them. What we found during COVID was a lot of the tutorials we were offering through My Grad Skills, we just began offering them directly through the library. It was easier. There was less layers of communication there, but we did focus on, making sure that those skills and those workshops were not lost. We were also mandated with developing open access outreach program for graduate students. And that is something that Nadine and I were looking at last week and said, oh, we never ever did that. We don't even know what that means. So that's one of those ones that was a lofty goal that was clearly not sustainable. And then we also looked at identifying and advising on best practices for communication tools and resources for U of C graduate students. Thank you. Okay, so our memberships and meetings in the beginning, in the spring and summer of 2020, it was our goal to have all reserves and instruction online. So of course, like everybody knows here, it was a really quick turnover where all of a sudden, you'd get an email in the morning with somebody having a huge emergency and you'd have to quickly build something for them and get it out to them as soon as possible. Things like instruction, we were often asked to do different types of instruction, especially in that asynchronous model. So it was our plan right away to get all of that stuff online. And then of course, we found as COVID was developing and as it was going longer and longer, we'd always get those surprises. In the beginning, our membership, we had the team lead. Okay, so it was librarian role. We had 8 librarians on the team and 3 support staff as of May 2020. And we will talk a little bit about the evolution of the membership here as well. Our meeting schedule, we met weekly in June 2020, just to get up to speed. We wanted to develop our terms of reference. We wanted to make sure we were all in the same team. In the summer, we moved to biweekly. And then we moved to monthly in the 2020-2021 academic year. And now it's a month and a half, usually. So depending on people's schedules. This team reports to the AUL, okay, Faculty Engagement and Facilities. So in the beginning, we reported quite frequently, and now we're down to fairly infrequent team leads meetings. Okay, because the work is running, it's pretty smooth now. Okay, and all teams were expected to use Microsoft Teams for the ease of collaboration, and we'll talk a little bit about some of those issues in a bit. Okay, so our terms of reference here. Okay, our mandate was to work collaboratively. Why can't I say that word today? I was saying it 100 times earlier, collaboratively to establish and optimize library programs. Okay, so the main goal really was to make sure, we didn't have one graduate librarian over here and another one over here and another one over here, and everybody working on the same thing and everybody dropping the same balls. So we wanted to make sure that we weren't wasting our time. We wanted to make sure that things weren't being missed. Okay, and these graduate support teams were a wonderful way of making sure that we're picking up all of these pieces that you might not, an individual librarian may not have found. Our assumptions and dependencies. We knew right away that our success is dependent on support from senior leadership team. Okay, we needed support from IT. We needed support from communications. So right away, we laid out what our support that we needed was from these teams in order to ensure our success. Thank you. Our membership expectations. So this is right from the very beginning. Team members will attend meetings where possible. Okay, participate in discussions, work collaboratively. Okay, so we're going to use the word collaboratively probably 100 times, and you'll probably hate it at the end of this session. But that's the big goal of this was that relationship building piece. Our decisions were made through discussion and consensus. So the team lead was mostly just an organizer. Okay, so as a team lead, when I started, it was organizing meetings. It was making sure people were keeping on track. There was no, top down. Okay, as appropriate, we will consult and collaborate with AULs and other work teams. And that's what we're finding now as we've been going on. I mean, we're almost 3 years now, that the work we're doing with the other teams is starting to take a little bit more priority than working on our own. We will respect diverse opinions and views and respect the privacy and confidentiality of any information shared. So our priority areas of development here. Okay, so there's quite a bit here. Instruction and program development. So we wanted to work to develop those programs and offer graduate instruction. And we especially wanted to look at those missing pieces. So we'd look at what we started right away. Was one of our first meetings was saying, okay, yes, we are working for graduate students, but what do we mean by graduate students? Okay, so our postdocs consider graduate students. Okay, and then so we said, yes, they are. What we're looking at the needs of international graduate students. What are the needs of parent graduate students? And so we just brainstormed all of these different types of graduate students just to make sure that we were meeting the needs of our diverse group of people. Okay, and this involved things like workshops and instruction, reaching out to different areas to see what they needed. Okay, and we are going to get into these more in depth in a bit. Then we also have partnerships and collaborations, and I have to say that's the piece that I've loved the most out of this. We have developed partnerships and collaborations across campus. Areas that we never thought we'd be collaborating with. Okay, now we're part of the conversation in a lot of ways that we weren't. So things such as we work with the Student Success Center on Graduate Success Week. So that's a yearly mini conference that's held in May every year. So we work with the Student Success Center to ensure that the program is there. We work to build library programs in there. We offer space, things like that. We work with the Graduate Students Association. We would reach out to them and see how we could collaborate with them and offer different types of services. Under identifying opportunities, that was a lot of doing environmental scans. So we did an internal scan to look and see what all of the librarians were doing. Okay, so what was happening across campus in our institution, to find different opportunities of ways to engage graduate students. We also started doing a external scan. So we began working on that, and we looked at a variety of university websites to see how graduate students were represented on their library web pages. And we did that to help build our LibGuide to make sure we weren't missing any pieces. Okay, and also working with those other support groups to ensure a coordinated approach to service design and delivery, just to make sure that there's no duplication in here. We're not wasting our time. And then communications. We worked with other areas on campus to communicate. We send out newsletter posts, and we've really built that up over COVID. We have a great working relationship with Faculty of Grad Studies. And we're really working on building these this year. And then we do that by communication, just by reaching out to these areas and saying, hey, we're here. Especially in the beginning of COVID, we just wanted students to know that although the library was closed, we were there for them. We understood where their stress was. So there was so much stress, right? Everybody was so stressed. And you're thinking, we've got graduate students who are about to do their, their field of study examinations. And all of a sudden they're stressed. They need all these books. So we really wanted to address that stress and mental health aspect from a support perspective. Okay, so some of our goals that we did just for year one, our short-term goals by the end of August 2020, we wanted to prioritize a landing page for graduate students. Okay, so we really wanted to get it out there where graduate students could go onto the library website and say, this is where I am. Okay, this is who I am. We did our environmental scan by the end of the summer, just to see what was going on and to help figure out where to go next. So we worked on the landing page, but then we also developed the graduate support LibGuide as a way of immediately meeting those needs. And that was finished, I think it was early August 2020. It was worked on very quickly. There was a COVID graduate LibGuide created in May 2020, which dealt with field of study resources, physical space booking for virtual exams and defenses. And we merged that in with the graduate LibGuide. The graduate LibGuide is still very much essential to the work we do. We update it frequently. We're constantly looking at ways to improve it. Okay, and then we also worked on an instruction and orientation plan for the fall and made sure we were part of orientation programs. So Nadine and I worked on a really quick, I think it was a 3-minute library orientation video that we finished and sent them off to the Faculty of Grad Studies. So we wanted to get all that stuff out of the way right away before the fall term started. Next slide, please. Thank you. Our medium-term goals for the end of December 2020 were really to focus on those partnerships across campus. And we did that by creating subgroups, which Nadine will get into shortly. But we really focused on trying to find people to connect with. And we had quite a bit of success with those partnerships across campus. We worked on a schedule of workshops. Okay, so we had different workshops at different times. We wanted to make sure that we weren't really missing any pieces there. We worked on an external scan. So we collected all that information and took a quick look at it. Never actually published that one. So that one was a little bit of a half-dropped goal. And then we created a communication plan. So we decided when we'd reach out to people, kind of what we'd say. And we did. And we kept our communication plan very simple, right? Because everybody was getting communications from everybody all the time. So it was really short and simple and point of need, right? Right before we knew thesis would have to be digitized or put into the repository, we would send a little note being like, hey, we're here to help. Next, please, Nadine. Thank you. And as of June 2021, our long-term goals. So our goals became a little bit more broad over the long term. And that was just to continue developing those partnerships, right? Such as working with the Student Success Center a bit more, working with the International Student Services. So really develop those partnerships. And that's something that we continue to this day. Our partnership opportunities, we're always looking for people to work with. And one of our goals was to evaluate the success of the GST. And we did that quite informally. Okay, I will.
My turn. So Rhiannon mentioned the COVID LibGuide. We and the other LibGuide that we created, we started out by really trying to start with low-hanging fruit so that we could do some deliverables. We collected information and created a private LibGuide for existing instruction because we wanted to repurpose things. We didn't want everyone to have to do everything themselves. So we asked everyone to share, and there was a form created for the LibGuide and all of that type of thing. We also created HathiTrust LibGuide and a tutorial. So we were part of the Emergency Temporary Access Program for HathiTrust, but we also had the regular HathiTrust, and lots of people didn't understand the difference between the two. We also had people not understand ILL, and the grad support team took ILL, interlibrary loan, on as a project because we see that as graduate students always ask about things beyond our walls, virtual or otherwise, when they first started. And then how to find a thesis was our next tutorial that we did. So our orientation, instruction, and tutorials grew to have the interlibrary loan, the micro-credentials, which was a university-wide initiative, and thing links, which I'm going to talk about in a little bit. But lots of these were staff driven, support staff driven, led by support staff. And some of the tutorials we did started with librarians, but then there was great input from support staff and MAP staff, which was fabulous. And then our thing links had to be approved by the senior leadership team. And I'll have examples of those in a couple of minutes. So we created an administrative structure to help Rhiannon Sanity as the chair of the team, and had sub leads and all of that type of thing. So then we started, our group was, saw the need for working across the teams because the user-centered groups work well, but there's a lot of things that you need for generic issues. So one of the teams that we started as a cross-unit team was to deal with citation management. We had RefWorks along the way. We got rid of RefWorks. Other citation management software changed at minimum interfaces. Sometimes they changed how they dealt with support. Some things work on a Mac, other things don't work on a Mac. We were finding that there were lots of technological issues that we were troubleshooting, and we shouldn't be troubleshooting them. They're IT or the software. So that team created a new LibGuide in order to direct users appropriately. And that ultimately takes the pressure off the subject librarians and the chat operators. So we moved to a centralized chat model and using LibChat. We're a SpringShare LibWizard LibGuide type shop. The library basics and the tutorial creation cross teams were created simultaneously in the fall, with people across every team that are members of those teams. The basics works together to ensure basic information is going to be available for our summer research projects and for fall orientations to have a better user experience. The tutorial creation was to try and make sure that everyone's got a similar look and feel, that everything can be future-proofed. So our interlibrary loan tutorial that we did early in COVID, we changed systems and have moved to the rapid system from Ex Libris, and they need to be changed. Our website also changed during COVID, so they need to be done totally from scratch, and they're going to be future projects. But the basics team was also looking at, we created a how to find a book tutorial and a finding a journal tutorial using LibWizard, which LibWizard will allow you, as your website changes and as interface changes, they'll automatically make the changes for you. So these give great, Rhiannon mentioned collaboration. I'm going to be the communication person. So the communication across the teams was really somewhat lacking as we worked in a bit of silo. And now it's back working again. We also had, because of all three staff groups being part of our team, you'd be amazed at what things support staff pick up on that librarians miss, or things that librarians pick up on and support staff miss. So it was great to have everyone able to participate in those things. So we had lots of successes. Our university librarian is also a vice provost, so she's part of the provost team. She loves the user focus of the teams. The provost loves the user focus of the teams. We changed provost last year as well, and both of them like the teams and love that idea. It's a front and center idea to have the user focus. I think it might have helped us with budget and gives us the good vibes, good stories to keep us in everyone's thoughts. The fourth team for outreach support was across LCR, so beyond the library, and the social media side of things, but it also allowed each team to increase outreach, and that's been encouraged. The constructive comments make the final product better. There was also a website team created along the way based on the support teams that someone was appointed to be that focus. I was that person for the graduate support team. And most of our comments, the constructive comments that we made, were incorporated into our new website, which was great because our old website buried a lot of our public service aspects that were not technologically related. The website is now organized by user groups, for example, for research and services. The other thing that I thought about as Rhiannon was speaking that's not on this slide is the fact that our vice provost and university librarian also used the work teams to check in with during COVID and since COVID, just to make sure that things have that user focus. So really important. A few examples of some of the things that we've done. These are the aspect. This is the current menu for the graduate support LibGuide. And we decided to do it as a LibGuide as opposed to a website because we could control it. The number of layers with our prior website for us to go through to make changes was significant. Those have been cut largely, at least in half, to get things changed with our new website because of using these user support teams in order to do it. So things might change. This is our ThingLink. So ThingLink is a software that is very image-based, and we have at least 2 ThingLink projects. This was one of them that created a roadmap to grad student services. It was busier when we started, but this is meant to start and go along the road and what things might you need as a graduate student as you go. So there's some things that are basics that are printing. The theses and dissertation also talks about how you can deposit your thesis at the end. And last week we had a team leads meeting and there was a request to link to this particular roadmap on more places in the website. So that's in the immediate future plans. The other ThingLink software that we did was started by the undergraduate support team, and we created it. We used it for creating 360 tours of every branch and of the Taylor Family Digital Library. So along the way, we had just went live, what was it, 3 weeks ago, Rhiannon, that we now have a tour of our Alan MacDonald Graduate Commons. And so I'm the one with these links. They're not at Rhiannon's fingertips because I'm now the chair. So there's a question in chat asking to share the links. And so there are a couple of links that I'll share once I'm done speaking and controlling the slides here. This is another initiative that we have, an example of collaboration with the International Student Center. Our learning management system that we use is D2L, and the International Student Center created a D2L shell with all kinds of information, and LCR, Libraries and Cultural Resources, is part of that. And Rhiannon is the person who actually has access to it as part of her functional role. Assigned functional role is the functional role to the Faculty of Graduate Studies, in addition to her business subject hat. This is what our Alan MacDonald Graduate Commons looks like. It's a room that actually got converted from our microfiche access room and was named in memoriam for a former longtime university librarian who was here from 1979 until the late 1990s. His name was Alan MacDonald. He was a great man of large stature, and I actually knew him as a student here. So we named this room in his honor. It is bookable working space that's booked by the year, largely by social science and humanities graduate students, so that they can be close to the books that they need and keep them in their lockers. So it's intended for them to be booking space or a spot in this room when they're actually doing their heavy duty writing and research, as opposed to when they're doing their coursework. And then we've been working on, we have a subgroup dedicated to this room and looking into potential programming and events that can happen there. Because of COVID, we hadn't done a whole lot. We're hoping to do more programming type events, and we'll link you to that tour once I stop speaking. Now I want to get into some of the practical things, best practices, lessons learned, and those types of things. So one of the issues that we had these lofty goals. We found that starting small gave us good deliverables. Staff at different levels, these groups were originally created for communication purposes, collaboration purposes, and to keep support staff engaged. So academic staff see these projects as off the side of their desk, not part of their regular duties. So as a chair, Rhiannon had issues keeping people engaged, and I'm continuing to have those issues. But we started by tweaking our existing materials to meet our COVID needs to move online, which Rhiannon mentioned. I mentioned that you'd be surprised at the staff contributions, but how much encouraging or managing that it takes for the support staff to be involved is, you'd be surprised at how much more time that takes than you think it will. The chairs need to coordinate more across the teams. And I've got an example for coordination and potential confusion. We started out with interlibrary loan, coordinating with the faculty support team, but then we found out that the undergraduate support team was doing the same. Rhiannon went to all the team leads and said, listen, we've already started it, and It's more important to graduate students. So we then continued and sought input from the other teams, but we led that project. We got a new ILL system in December a year ago. So we're now doing it all again and coordinating with our collections unit and senior leadership team and the teams and all of that type of thing. So that's on the radar for us to discuss at our team meeting next week. We've also had issues with commitment. So we've had a number of retirements, some a month into the team being created. Some people have moved on, which is inevitable. We've also had a number of research leaves that we've had to deal with, and we've done a bunch of new hiring. We have one member who's only attended the first meeting, and then he got busy doing other things administratively. We've had some projects dropped. We've had some dropped and picked up again. But the administrative structure with the subgroups has really helped with reporting and keeping things moving. And we learned lots of lessons with technology and working with Microsoft Teams. It's what our university is using combined with SharePoint. So we had things in 20 different places, and we're now moving to more and more things on Teams. So it works great for collaborating, but not so great with the training and the individuals needing to work within Teams. So the number of times we're sending links to documents or folders is large, even 3 years into these teams being created. So our future plans, can't say everything that we're doing because we've got our team meeting next week to figure out what our summer projects will be. But we are anticipating guidelines and best practices from our media creation team by the end of May, so that as we're creating new tutorials, each team and everything will have proper branding and a similar look and feel. We had a team leads meeting last week, which sees success with the teams, and there was a request from the AUL to continue the practice of cross-team collaboration where we need to. Our cross-team collaboration, I mentioned the 3 earlier. We also had a request at that meeting for more prominent links to the roadmap on the website. We're being encouraged to move service content to web pages. The thinking there is that it's easier to find, and more importantly, the website group is more responsive to our requests to change things as we need to. There was also a commitment made by the 3 main team leads to work with the other teams more regularly and more often, and at least to communicate more regularly. The May meeting, I'm really hoping that we will be able to rotate our subgroup leads, because it started out with Rhiannon leading half of the teams and me leading the other half, with one that was led by someone else. And we're hoping to get new energy for summer projects that will really help keep our fall orientation in mind. So that's where we're leading, is to try and have less that we have to worry about for fall orientation, that we can have a body that everyone can use. So our suggestions, can't stress these enough. Choose realistic projects or longer timelines from the start. That'll ensure positive outcomes and limit disappointment. So the roadmap took a long time. It had it took almost a year to get that through the process, everyone adhering to the guidelines for accessibility, because the first version blinked, which for those with ADHD or I had a migraine the day I saw it, and it wasn't great. But the main person that did that was very responsive and receptive to all of this. But then when it went through the senior leadership team, that's extra layers, that takes time. The next thing link that we went through, we said, okay, when do we need this by? Let's make sure that it goes live before the spring. So we were able to work with that much faster. Practical administrative suggestions, having the person that leads the meeting not have to take the notes is very helpful. And so we call for someone to take the notes at the beginning of every meeting. And we've tried to make sure that it's not the same person all the time. The co-chairs led to a really smooth transition. So I was on board for the 6 months, taking more of an active role. And I can't say communicate, and collaborate throughout it. The team structure allowed us to do that. Now we've got thank yous. Here's our contact information. We're going to go into question time, and during that I am going to Rhiannon can let me know if there's any links that I need to pull out of my email for everyone. I'm going to stop sharing.
Wizard.
Okay.
Yeah,
I will do that here.
Thank you guys very much. If we have questions, you guys can feel free to unmute yourselves and ask our presenters, or if you'd like to type them in the chat, that would be great.